Hello and welcome to Algebra 1 SOL Prep Week 9. Today we are focusing on SOL A2C, factor polynomials. Before we get started, we need to go over two things. One, the first thing, if we see the term zeros, roots, x-intercepts, and solutions, for what we are working on today, those mean the same thing. So those four different terms are talking about the same idea. On the other hand, factors are funny. They're a little bit different. Factors are formed from the roots, zeros, x-intercepts, and solutions. So if I can find my zeros, I can find my factors because they are formed from those. So let's get started on how to do that. We are going to use the calculator to find our zeros so that we can write our factors. So we are going to use the calculator, and we are going to use our app on our calculator called Polynomials. And so to find that, I need to clear out of whatever I'm in. Back onto the home screen, I'm going to press Apps. I'm going to go to number 4 on here, but I'm going to look for Polynomials to make sure it's number 4. And then I'm going to press enter for next. And we want number 1, the polynomial root finder, because remember, roots are the same as zeros. Make sure your calculator has this the same. 2, real, fraction, normal, float, degree, and then press next. So now we need to figure out what to put in for a sub 2, a sub 1, and a sub 0. If we look at our form here, a sub 2 belongs to our x squared, a sub 1 belongs to our x, and a sub 0 is our constant term. So we can find those on our problem. So our problem says, what is the factored form of 25x squared plus 30x plus 9? Well, as we just discussed, I now know that 25 is our a sub 2 because that's what the x squared. Our 30 is our a sub 1 because it belongs to the x. And lastly, our positive 9 is our a sub 0 because that is our constant term. So we are going to plug these values in to find our zeros so that we can find and build our factors. So 25, 30, 9, and then I hit solve and it gives me my zeros. So my two zeros are negative 3 over 5 and negative 3 over 5. I want to write those down, and so should you. Negative 3 over 5. Negative 3 over 5. So once we found our zeros, we can write our factors. So to write our factors, what we need to do is we need to move and change the sign. So since this is a x equals negative 3 over 5, I'm going to move it and change the sign. So now I have x plus 3 over 5. Same for this one, x plus 3 over 5. Because I have a fraction, I need to take the denominator and move that to the front. So I now have 5x plus 3, and that is my factor. I take my denominator, move it to the front before my x, and now I have 5x plus 3, and that is my factor. Since I have 5x plus 3 and 5x plus 3, we know that our solution is going to be 5x plus 3 times 5x plus 3. So this is the completely factored form. Another way that we can see this written is how it is on our solution, which is 5x plus 3 squared. Because we have two copies of it, this is the same as 5x plus 3 times 5x plus 3. So I know my solution is C. Let's take a look at our second one, which represents the factors of 36x squared minus 49. So if I go back to my calculator, I can hit coefficients, I can hit that, and we can enter our information. So I know that my a sub 2 is my 36 because that's what the x squared, but I do not have a sub 1 because I don't have an x term. So a sub 1 has to be 0. And then a sub 0, my constant, is a negative 49. So a sub 2 is 36. A sub 1 is 0. And then a sub 0 is negative 49. So I can enter those in. So 36, 0, negative 49. I hit solve and I get my roots or my zeros. So I have that x is equal to 7 over 6 and x is equal to negative 7 over 6. So I do the same process. I switch sides and change the sign. So x minus 7 over 6 and x plus 7 over 6. Now, since I have fractions, I move my denominators in front of my x, and I have 6x minus 7. That is a factor. And on our other one, move the 6 in front of the x, and I have 6x plus 7 is a factor. So my factored form, I have 6x minus 7, that's right here, and I have 6x plus 7, that's right there. So my answer is B. The next one I have, the zeros of a function are 2/3 and negative 5, which could be the function. So they already did the first part for us. We have our zeros, or we have our roots. Remember, zeros are the same as our roots. We have those already. And we then have that x is equal to 2 over 3 and x is equal to negative 5. So we're going to do the same process. I change sides and change the sign. So x minus 2 over 3, x plus 5. Now the first one I have a fraction, so I move my denominator in front of my x, and it is 3x minus 2 is my factor. This one I do not have a fraction, so my factor is just x plus 5. So the function that could be with zeros of 2/3 and negative 5, if I want to write it out, would be f of x is equal to 3x minus 2 times x plus 5. Those are my two factors. I look to see where do I have that 3x minus 2, x plus 5. That is answer choice A. Next one, factor completely. W cubed minus 6w squared minus 27w. So what we want to do when we're trying to factor most of our problems is look for a GCF. Do we have a GCF? We need to find that before we use our app. Well, in our previous problems, we haven't had one, but in this one, I see that I have a w in each of my terms. So I can divide out a w from each one because it is a GCF. I take out a w, so that's on the outside. If I divide out a w from w cubed, I have w squared left. If I take a w out of negative 6w squared, I'm left with negative 6w. And if I take a w out of negative 27w, I'm left with minus 27. So this part, this second part, is what I'm going to enter in my calculator. I know there is a 1 in front of the w squared, so my a sub 2 is 1. My a sub 1 is going to be negative 6. And my a sub 0 is negative 27. So I go back, I press coefficients, I enter my information, 1, negative 6, negative 27, and then I hit solve. And I get 9 and negative 3. So my zeros are 9 and negative 3. Since we are using w's, I will write those. we have w is equal to 9 and w is equal to negative 3. So again, I switch the sign, so w minus 9 and w plus 3. Since I don't have a fraction, I know these are my factors. And I can combine these two factors with the w I already took out, and I have w minus 9 times w plus 3, all multiplied together. That is the factored form of this polynomial, and let's take a look for it. So we know we need a w out front, so these are both out. And then I need a w minus 9 and a w plus 3, so my answer has to be D. Taking a look at our next one, this is a TEI type of question, or a drag and drop. So we want to click and drag each factor to the box. So it says factor the polynomial 6x squared minus 14x minus 12. So I take a look. Do I have a GCF? Is there any number or variable I can take out of all of these? Well, they don't all have an x. There's no x here. So I know I cannot take out an x, but all of these are even. They are all divisible by 2. I can divide everything by 2. So I can take a 2 out. If I divide 6 by 2, I have a 3x squared left. If I divide negative 14x by 2, it's negative 7x. And if I divide negative 12 by 2, I'm left with minus 6. So I divided everything by 2. Now I can enter my information in the calculator. As we've done before, I know that a sub 2 is equal to 3, a sub 1 is equal to negative 7, and a sub 0 is equal to negative 6. Three, negative 7, negative 6. Solve. This gives me my zeros of 3 and negative 2/3. So those are my zeros, 3 and negative 2/3. So now let's write our factors. Switch sides and change the sign, so x minus 3 and x plus 2/3. Again, since I have a fraction, I'm going to move my denominator in front, and I know my factor is 3x plus 2. And this one is the same, x minus 3. And since I took a 2 out, I know I also have a factor of 2. So those are all my factors. I can write it a little bit cleaner. Over here, I have 2, x minus 3, 3x plus 2. All multiplied together, so those are my factors. So I can click and drag. So I know I have a 2. I need a x minus 3. And I need a 3x plus 2. So I would click and drag all of those together. Those are my factors. Number 6, click and drag each factor to the box, factor the polynomial. So on this one, I see every term has an x. So on this one, I can divide out an x. If I take an x out, I put that in front. And so x cubed over x, I'm left with a 2x squared. Negative 7x squared over x, one of the x's goes away, and I'm left with negative 7x. And lastly, 5x over x, the x's divide out, and I'm left with plus 5. So I can enter my information again. A sub 2 is equal to 2. A sub 1 is equal to negative 7. A sub 0 is equal to 5. Enter this in. 2, negative 7, 5, solve. 5 over 2 and 1 is equal to 5 over 2. x is equal to 1. Change the sides, change the sign, x minus 5 over 2, x minus 1. Bring my denominator up. My factor is 2x minus 5. No denominator, so x minus 1. And then I bring my x down that I took out from the beginning, and I have x in front. So now my factors are x that I took out in the beginning, the 2x minus 5, and then the x minus 1. Number 7, a polynomial function has a 0 at x equals 5, which could represent this function. So let's use the information we have. We know that we have x is equal to 5. So what would the factor be, since all of my answer choices have factors? Well, switch sides and change the sign. X minus 5 is my factor. I don't have a denominator, so I don't have to move anything. So x minus 5 is my factor, so let's look what has x minus 5. This is x plus 5, so that's not it. That's not it. X plus 1. Oh, here's an x minus 5, and I look, that's the only answer choice that has a x minus 5. So my answer must be C. It's the only answer choice that has a factor of x minus 5. Lastly, what appears to be a solution of g of x equals 0? So remember, solution is one of our 4 terms. Zeros, roots, x-intercepts, and solutions all represent the same thing. So if I am given a graph, I am looking for the x-intercepts. So our x-intercepts are where our graph crosses our x-axis. So right here and right here. That is at x equals -3 and at x equals 1. So what appears to be a solution? Well, the only choice I have is A, -3. So that is my answer. If I wanted to know what a factor was, well, I would just do the same thing. I would change the sign for both of them, and I could get my factors. But this asks for a solution, so I don't need to do that. All right, folks, practice your problems. I'm kidding. We have one left to do. So number 9, what is a root of x squared plus 7x minus 30? So remember, roots, intercepts, solutions, and zeros are the same. So I just need to go find my zeros. So I can use my app for that. So back here, I need to figure out what am I plugging in. So at this point, hopefully we know what we are plugging in. I'm going to plug in 1, 7, positive 7, and negative 30. So 1, positive 7, negative 30, and solve. These are my solutions, negative 10 and positive 3. Since my solutions and my zeros and my roots and my x-intercepts are all the same, I am looking for a positive 3 or a negative 10. The only one on here is my positive 3. So that is my solution. These other ones are not it. Now, you guys can work on the practice problems. I will see you later. Bye.